You can smell baked bread all through my house. I just made some homemade.
Oh, okay, cool.
Cooking up a turkey. Smells so good here. Yummy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've only cooked a turkey once because we don't have anything like, Thanksgiving or anything like that.
You don't have Thanksgiving?
Well, yeah, because it's more of a New World thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
What happened in North America and kind of extended.
You can start your own tradition. You can start your own Thanksgiving tradition.
Well, we do it. Well, we sort of do. We have the Treaty of Waitangi, which is between the Maori, our native population, the Maoris, and the British Crown.
Interesting.
It is interesting. But the Maoris don't think that the British Crown has kept up with their end of the bargain. So it's like, pay up, sort of. I don't know, but yeah, Waitangi Day has been a bit. You'll find there's a lot of protests and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the New Zealand government, on behalf of the Crown, has paid a lot of money to all the different tribes, and it's still not finished yet. I don't think it will ever be finished because we get all these little tribes that sort of come out of the woodwork. And see, in New Zealand, if you have got Maori ancestry, you only have to have 1/16 Maori blood to be on the 1/16 to be on the Maori roll.
1/6. What do you mean?
Well, in Canada, I could be wrong about this. I seem to read it, but somewhere in Canada, that if you're creating or if you're creating Aboriginal status here in Canada, you have to have, I think it's 1/6. I think I read that number, but I could be wrong.
The 4th generation.
Yeah.
If you want to get your Aboriginal status, it's down the 4th generation. I missed it by 1 because my mother's the 3rd generation. I'm the 4th generation for the native Indian status.
And I don't know if it's the same for the Maori or in New Zealand, but if you are, you get a card. And
you have special privileges.
You get special privileges like tax-free online. You don't have to pay sales tax, and as long as you show your card. And what else?
And gas.
Well, again, gas is the price of gasoline for your car is cheaper, and they have a few.
Even housing, like you get certain housing rights and hunting rights.
Right. Yeah, we get the Maoris here. They get fishing rights. They own all the well, the New Zealand population as a whole is supposed to, we own the sea, but they get special treatment. And at the moment, the New Zealand health system's been split into 2, so you get the Pākehā and everybody else, including Samoans and all the island people, and then separated off that is the Maori race, so they get their own health care, and that's happening right now, so that's going to be very interesting.
Very, yes.
Yeah,
you're keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, I think if they have that card, they don't need a fishing license. They can fish pretty well wherever they want.
That's right.
And there's no limit to what they can catch. Not like the rest of us who fish. I don't fish, but fishers of men.
No, neither do I. But we have. I think they've still got limits because some of our fishing stocks are being overfished. So they're trying to do that. So So it's interesting times over here at the moment. And of course, we've got our general elections next year. So we could end up with a change of Prime Minister and a change of government, which is more towards the business and not, Labour's supposed to be more towards the working men,
Yes.
but National is not. It's more towards the business owners and the businesses and all that. So it'll be quite interesting to see what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you and Eric would like? A change in government? Get rid of your woke crime?
Well, when you read their whatever they come out with, it's like two sides of the bird, and so they purport to be two different parties, but they're not. If you know what I'm getting at, sort of. So last time, we were having a referendum, and we wanted to put our do the referendum, but we weren't. We didn't want to vote because we couldn't find anything that was even remotely Christian or anything like that. So it was like, well, if we vote for Labour, we're going to get Jacinda Ardern, and if we vote for National, we're going to get somebody else, but they're like birds of the same feather. So what do you do in that case? What do you do if the two main parties, are not going to do anything even remotely Christian? They're not interested.
Same here. Between Liberals and Conservatives, and in the NDP, which would be our version of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
They're not even remotely, like the Conservatives are trying to, they like to think that the Christian vote is basically theirs, and for the most part, because most Christians are conservative, same as in the States, but they don't have a lot of respect for what believers might vote or what they believe in or what they, as far as things like what's the word? What am I looking for, honey? Again,
No idea.
I keep thinking abolition, but I don't mean that. I mean abortion. Thank you. Abortion, things like abortion, things that are important to Christians, but are not important to, and the Liberal government here is they're just going crazy because of what the Supreme Court did in the United States, overturning Roe versus Wade. They're just crazy. That's not going to happen in this country. There's going to be abortions. Abortions will always be legal in this country, and Americans who desire to have abortions and now can't have them because the decision can come to Canada, whatever. That's not going to be overturned. I know some provincial premiers have talked about it, and some of the more conservative provinces out west talked about outlawing things like that, but not going to happen. It's really not going to happen.
So then what do you do in that scenario where it's a privilege to vote, but there's not either party, there isn't anybody that you could vote for? And that's what I find. It's like I roll in to cast my vote and there's nobody to vote for.
Yeah, and you, like everyone else in a democratic country that don't have what you would call a Christian choice, and that's the same. I think you choose the lesser of two evils, whatever is closest to what you believe. Even there are degrees of that too, and I don't think we live in a democracy, and democracy is a participatory democracy in that we are given a vote. It's a right. It's a privilege. It's not a right, and we should exercise right as a citizen. I don't agree with people, and especially Christians who say, "Well, I don't have Christian to vote for it, so I'm not going to vote." No, that's not the answer. If you don't vote, there will never be change. The status quo will remain. So I think there's two things here. Yes, you should exercise your vote as a citizen. And this is my personal belief. Exercise your vote as a citizen, because it is a privilege. There's a lot of places in the world that don't have that privilege of choosing the government that's going to be over them, whether you like it or not. But when you don't, you don't have, to me, you said you don't have the right to complain then, because you didn't participate. You got the government, and as God said, you will get the government that you deserve. And, but on the other hand, you keep and you do what Paul says. Even though we have these governments, we need to pray for them.
Pray for them, yes.
Again, now that gets into a sticky situation. Maybe another round table. Like, what do Christians feel about Christians who were fundamentally opposed to Adolf Hitler and the Nazis? Did they pray for the government because Romans 13 said that they should? Well, I think there's a limit there. There's a line there. You don't pray for unrighteousness. And it was so obvious that that government was unrighteous. And for whatever reason that God had it in place, and we don't know. But I think there's a point, and there's also a precedent in the Bible, because I think it's Jeremiah was told at some point to stop praying for his people. Stop praying.
A few times in the Bible
his nation. He said, I'm not going to listen anymore, so don't stop praying for them.
Yeah, that's when I got really interested in history, was reading about the Nazis and what they did. And it was horrendous what they did. And it wasn't till I got lots older and, I got summarily biffed out of school because I wasn't, potentially I'd come to the end of my learning. So they biffed me out of school, and then I had to find something to do. So I got interested in history, and it just so happened to be the Nazi era. And I read a couple of books, and I found out that even all through that war and much further on, that anybody that didn't fit that mold, they were killing off. So people like me, we were being summarily dispatched.
Sure. You would have been in Nazi Germany in your condition you were now. Yes, you would have been dispatched to the camps.
Yeah, I would have been dispatched, and a few of my friends would have been dispatched as well. And I thought that was horrendous. But because in New Zealand, when you study, like history, it's usually some of the English thrown and a lot of about the Maori Wars and what tribes were fighting whom, and that they were cannibals and all that, but they didn't really go into the Nazi regime and that. And I kind of found that kind of fascinating. Sort of. I don't know why. It did fill in a lot of spare time I had, and I got really interested in history then.
Well, we're not going to do anything. It's just us, because nobody else is coming.
Yeah.
But this is fascinating, having this discussion.
Yes, definitely.
We're waiting to see if anybody comes on, and if nobody comes, I don't think we're going to do anything, because then it's just an interview. We're just interviewing you. And this is a really important topic, and I'm glad Eric suggested, and I want more people to get involved to be able to talk about it, have their say. So we'll wait a little bit longer to see if anybody else comes. But I really want to explore this topic. And Eric, thank you for suggesting this.
No, it was Wendy that suggested.
Was Wendy suggesting it? Oh, I thought it was Eric.
I was reading it, and I asked Eric a couple of questions, and he answered them, and then he decided it might be a good idea for a round table discussion.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
I know that Anne and I've had a discussion about, about healing.
I taught on it. Remember, I taught on healing and prayer, and I did a whole teaching on that.
But the way I learn is by practically doing it, and it's like there's a lot of things I think about being the way I am that able-bodied people don't think about. There's not being disparaging, but it's true.
I think Wendy, I think it's a legitimate question, and it's the elephant in the room with a lot of Christians. We attended a lot of churches, a lot of evangelical churches where, there was this great belief in healing. And and we saw a lot of, and I hate to say it, we saw, just to make their points and to prove that we saw a lot of false demonstrations of what they called healing. No understanding. And at that point, I had that same question. Why aren't people legitimately being healed? If the Bible says that through the atoning work of Jesus, we can expect healing in our physical body, why isn't it happening? I know that God, in some of the things the horrendous things we used to see in these churches that we attended, I had to repent of being involved in this, but we used to have speakers come in, evangelists come in, and they talk about healing. And then anybody wants healing in their body, and they'd have these long conga lines, literally conga lines, people dancing to the music while they're waiting for the guy to slap oil on them like they were like stuck pigs. And, oh, you're healed in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And just, off you go. And misusing that verse where Paul says to Timothy, he said, if there's anybody who's sick among you, they're to go to the elders of the church to pray for them. And the elders will lay oil on them and they will receive the healing. Why isn't that happening? And it's a legitimate question, which is why I'm really...
It does in some cases, and it does in other cases.
And that's what
there's different reasons for
that's what we're going to be discussing in this roundtable, which is why I wanted to get more people involved, because of everybody's experience, and you most of all, because of the situation that you are in. We're all praying for you. We're all praying for healing, and you probably had people pray all your life for healing, and yet
no, I haven't.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
because in the Salvation Army, when the topic of tongues came up, he decided that was a load of poppycock.
Yes, okay.
And so then he decided that we couldn't go to church because he didn't want to go. But then I wanted to go by that point. But because I couldn't get myself to church and he wasn't prepared to drop me off, or that was the end of that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was I suppose I was about 15 or 16 when he decided that he wasn't going to go to church. And then when we started to go to church, nobody prayed over me. Nobody talked about what it said in the Bible about healing. So when I got my head around this thing that God could actually heal my physical body, that I didn't have to stay like this, there was nobody to talk to, and there was an elderly lady, and she and I had a sort of a good relationship. So I asked her, and she sort of said, well, it is in the Bible, and and you just got to ask God. And I kept asking God, but nothing would happen. And then I went to a healing. We had Benny Hinn come over here, and a friend decided it'd be good to take Eric and myself, and I should get healed in this, this big arena thing. But nothing happened. And really what hurt me was while they were getting me out of the car, I saw another younger person than me with a bit more severe disability than I have being trundled into this conference with Benny Hinn. And I'm thinking, I hope he gets healed too, because that would be quite neat. But he came out like I did. We were both still.
That doesn't surprise me, sister.
Benny Charlotte.
Yeah, we were both still in our broken physical bodies, and I thought, well, what's going on? I couldn't get my head around why nothing was going on.
Right.
So I just left it. And every time I asked anybody if I could get their attention, because in our churches, all the churches I've been to, I had, if I'm in my chair, which I mostly was, I had to sit down the back because of the fire the so-called fire regulations, and if there was an earthquake, I had to sit down the back so that I didn't impede able-bodied people's ability to get out of the church if we needed to get out in a hurry.
Wow.
And I'm afraid that doesn't impress me when able-bodied people say to me, oh, well, if you come to our church, you got to sit at the back.
Right. Some churches are like that. Not all churches, but
because of my disability. And I think, well, and then I go to help them do something, and they say, well, you're in the road and we don't need your help because able-bodied people can do it faster and better than I can, and that doesn't help.
Well,
that
obviously
didn't help
the
me
wrong
either.
church for you was the wrong church.
Yeah.
Not all churches are like that or believe that, but
very well. Not all churches,
Pastor James's church.
Good majority of them.
He would never do that.
No.
But and Pastor Bob wouldn't either.
No.
Yeah. So I think it's important to include, if you have disabled people of any disability, to get them involved, because what I've seen is that disabled people get shunted out the road like we're in trouble and we're nuisances. So we get we don't want your help, or you can't do this very well, so we're not interested in having you do it. And the other thing that really annoys me too, that disabled people with speech impediments, really bad ones, it takes them a while to talk to you, but if you've got the patience and the wherewithal to sit down, shut up and listen, you'll be able to know what they're talking about.
Amen.
Right.
Amen. It reminds me of Jesus was coming into a certain town. I forget. I don't think it was Jericho, but I'm talking about blind Bartimaeus. Mm-hmm. And remember, he's walking in and the crowds are all around, and the blind people are on the sides because they're like exactly what you said, because they're in the way. They can't see it. They can't participate. So they have to go and sit on the sides.
They tried to silence
him. And what happens? They go, Son of David, Son of David. And what did they do? They tried to silence them. Mm-hmm. And Jesus cut through all the blather, and he cut through all that.
He heard his voice.
And he said, pushed all the able-bodied people away.
Yeah. And
he came right to where Bartimaeus was. And he said, what do you want me to do for you?
But he said, Son of David, but then he said, Lord, I would want to see. He knew it was Jesus, the Son of God.
Yeah.
He knew who it was, and he said, Lord,
so I
have mercy on me.
I get exactly what you're talking about.
Where's that?
That's a good, you should look that up.
What is that?
Bartimaeus. Just look up Bartimaeus. But what you say is very true. It's people like yourself, when you become modern day Bartimaeus, and that's sad when, okay, maybe you're not able-bodied, but there are certain things that you can do. God brings people to churches with all sorts and different kinds of gifts, and those gifts are all together to make the church grow. You can't deny or disqualify people because of, a situation like yourself. There are certain things you could do, and you should be allowed to do, because you have a heart to serve. And when you deny people a heart to serve, Jesus warned against that. He said, I expect you to be working. I expect you to be serving each other in whatever capacity you can do with it. And, we're so thankful for you and Eric. The things that you add in the chats and things you add in the roundtables and things, you are serving, doing what you're doing. I mean, Eric, we're doing his beautiful readings for us. I mean, this is all about serving the King, serving the Lord in any way that you possibly can. And that should be encouraged and not discouraged. And like you say, unfortunately, and for churches, they don't do that. And
it's like, I mean, I get treated differently than Eric does when we're walking down the street. Somebody will say to Eric, "Oh, how's your mother today?"
And what does Eric say? She's fine.
This is my wife.
Yeah, his parents live just outside of Wellington. And I have to say, I'm his wife. I'm not his mother. And the other thing we get is, oh, aren't you being good? You're taking her for a walk, because we don't live too far from Burwood Hospital, and that's the spinal unit mostly for the South Island.
Yeah.
And because we only live about, I suppose about 20 minutes walk from them, I guess. And so it's like, oh, isn't he good? He's taking you for a walk. And I want to actually go.
Yeah. Well, Eric he looks at you the same way Jesus does. I would suspect that Eric looks at you and he doesn't see your disability. He doesn't see that at all. He doesn't see that you're in a chair.
Of course,
not you guys.
Of course, I see your disability.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
I work around it.
Right.
I think you see her whole. I think you see her walking. I think you see her in the spirit and the things that you do. And then why by that, I'm not saying obviously. I mean, your eyes, you look at her, you can see her sit in a chair, but that doesn't register in your mind. That's the first thing you think about when you look at your wife. You know, you're not thinking she's disabled, right? You think there's so many other things about your wife that you're thinking about than that. This is just a minor thing. Well, it's not a minor thing, but you know what I mean. Yeah, there you go. See?
She's a whole person.
She's a whole
to you,
person.
she's a whole person. There's nothing missing.
There's nothing missing.
Nah, he just gets to because sitting down got the leverage to steer it. So
get to do stuff.
God is. Let's just put it this way. And God is pleased, I think, at your relationship, at the way you relate to one another. And Eric, how you see your wife. You know,
how you love your wife.
How you love your wife.
As Christ loved the church.
You love her.
Hear us 16 years ago, then.
Oh man, I get frustrated because I know what I want to do, but I physically can't do it. And it's like, oh, do I really have to get Eric to do whatever I was going to do? And it's like, yes, because I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that certainly goes back to what I was saying before about helping out of the church. You yourself see yourself maybe not as disabled. I want to do this. And yes, I might not physically be able to do that, but it's in your heart to do it. It's in your mind to do it. You want to do it as part of your service to God. And God honors that.
And I'll tell you a story that happened before Chantal died. When I was at home, my parents didn't teach me how to cook because one day Mum left me at home while her and Dad went to do something else. And Mum said to me, oh, there's a stew on the oven, on the cooktop. She said, give it a stir every now and again. Yeah. I said, right, that's cool. So I did. And because at that point in time in my life, I could actually walk a little bit. Not far. I've always used a chair because I couldn't walk a long distance, but around in my parents' home, I could walk with a pair of crutches. So I grabbed the wooden spoon and I gave this thing a stir, and I'm thinking to myself, hopefully I'm getting down the bottom because I didn't want it to catch. And I thought it was catching. So because I only had one hand, because I had to keep myself up, otherwise I've got no natural balance. So if I let go of both my crutches, I'd be on the floor. So I let go of one crutch and decided that this thing was catching. So I pulled it onto the bench, and I forgot that I should have got a board out. And when my mum and Dad walked in the door about half an hour later, I guess, Dad says to me, what's that pot doing on the bench? And I said, I think it was catching, Dad. And he lifted it back onto the stove and gave it a good stir. When he took the pot off, there's this great big let's put it this way, a great big hole in the surface of the bench. And boy,
Oh.
did he give me a ticking off.
Wow.
Oh, man. And I felt really dumb because I knew that because my dad is, if you met my dad is very, he likes everything done so, and
Right.
that
Particular,
sort of,
very particular.
yeah, very particular. And
But I bet you weren't thinking about that when you were pulling the pot off. You were thinking, "Yay, I get to do something. I get to stir this." Yeah.
Yeah, I get to stir it. So after that I wasn't allowed to cook because I kept making big mistakes like that and costing my parents a lot of money. So when I left home, I didn't really know how to cook. So I was trying to teach myself to cook. And CCS, which is the Crippled Children's Society, had like a course. And I said, but I've got Chantel. Is there any way I can leave Chantel with the other little girls and little boys while I go for I think it was for an hour. And if something goes wrong, give me a bell and I'll come down and fix her up and that sort of stuff. I just need you to look after her because when I had Chantel, my mum was still at work. So she wasn't there to babysit Chantel for me. So, and they said, oh no, they said, because they said, is Chantel able-bodied? And I said, yes. And they said, oh, well, she can't come into the littlies because she's able-bodied and all the other littlies have got disabilities and it wouldn't be fair on her.
So reverse discrimination.
So it was reverse discrimination.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
So my whole idea was that she would get used to people with disabilities, of all disabilities, and they all, this was like a little preschool for disabled little ones. And I couldn't leave Chantel there for half an hour, so that I could learn to, cook properly and do all sorts of things. But yeah.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, what am I going to do now? So the teacher said, well, because you've got no one to look after Chantel, then I'll have to come out to you. So she ended up coming out to our house. Yeah.
God provides.
So you learned how to cook.
And you learn how to cook, yeah. Obviously,
judging by the recipes that you put in the yummy room on the platform.
Yeah, but that's taken a lot of practice, and I'm okay if I've got something that I can follow.
Right.
That's, you know what, Wendy, that's true for most of us. Anne she can't follow stuff, so she's got this inner skill that I
can follow things.
Well, for the most part, but she just, when it comes to measuring and stuff, when she's cooking and stuff, she just does it by instinct and does it by, okay, that's enough. And it always turns out well. Well, normally it turns pretty well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very does it not. So, but again, you've demonstrated that with will and effort and time that you're able, and determination and perseverance, you are able to do
a lot of faith.
An able-bodied person can do.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to do stuff at a church, especially if they're having, like an afternoon tea or something like that. But usually I'm kicked out because I get in the road. But if I got made able-bodied tomorrow, I'd be in the back blocks of New Zealand on a farm with a whole load of horses. That's what I really want. I love horses. I think because I got introduced to horse riding when I was very young, and it helped me with my disability. And because they had to kind of strengthen my core up so that I could sit up festival.
Yes.
And they used to put this great big belt around your middle, and it had like 2 loops, and you had a person either side, so they would actually hold you up while you were going around on this horse. And one day when I was about 16 or 17, I went on this farm every Christmas holidays for a while, because I told my parents I wasn't going to Kaiteri because it was boring, and I wanted to go on a farm with plenty of horses. So there's this old horse called Goldie, and I thought, I'm here and I'm sick of just walking. I want to see if I can stay on this horse, not galloping, but trotting.
Yep.
And well, let's put it this way. I lasted all of about 2 minutes, I guess, and I come straight off over the horse's head and landed straight on my back. And she was, let's put it this way, my head was through her front legs, and I was still sort of holding on to the rein. And I don't know who saw me, because I wasn't near the house, but all of a sudden I heard all this commotion about, Wendy's fallen off the horse, help. So the farmer must have been somewhere, and he come racing over and picked me up and dusted me off and put me back on, and so
he put you back on.
So you fell off because you said you were trotting on Goldie. Is that because she suddenly stopped and you didn't?
No, it's because because I've got you can put my feet in the stirrups, but I can't actually keep my body from moving. I
Bouncing,
can't. I can't stop my body from moving. And I think because she was going at a what my body thought was a like galloping speed, and it wasn't.
Right.
My body couldn't keep up, so it decided it was going to slide off. It's hard to explain, but it's a real pain in the bum, because if I'm in a car and there's no car seat, no seatbelt to keep me sitting up, if you go around the corner, I'll have a tendency to slide over to the driver, and if you go the other way, then my body will go the other way.
Right.
And I can't seem to be able to stop that.
So listen, what do you think? Are there horses in heaven?
I hope so.
Oh yeah.
Because I want horses in
heaven. Going to be
heaven.
all kinds of animals. Everything's going to be restored.
Yeah. I would love horses in heaven, and I also want sorry, Richard, but I want all my cats in heaven as well.
No cats in heaven.
Cats.
Hey, do you realize if there was no cats in the world, the rodent population would be horrendous? And that's what they
birds.
We don't have any cats, and we hardly have any squirrels in our yard.
We have rodents because of the earthquake, where we have now we've got houses right about us, but over the road, that's where it starts. And we've had a few mice in our house since those houses were knocked down.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's going to be at least one horse in heaven, because the book of Revelation says that Jesus will return riding a white horse, faithful and true. So there's going to be at least one, and he has the hosts of heaven behind him, and maybe the hosts of heavens are riding too. So I suspect there's lots of horses, or going to be lots of horses in heaven, and those places that the Lord has prepared for us to dwell in forever in his presence. Probably yours is going to have a little paddock on the side with a couple of horses.
Well, I hope so, and I want a white tiger as well, because I like tigers. I think it's quite cool.
That is a big
No, actually, I don't.
I'll tell you, I'm warning you right now, though, Eric and Wendy, if you have cats in your house in heaven, I will not be coming over to visit. I won't be coming over for
Well,
tea.
the Lord definitely has to work on your
I do
attitude.
realize that our minds will be changed when we get to heaven.
That's right. We're
Amen.
open.
Chapter and verse about changing our minds about cats.
I
So
didn't say about cats. As I said, our minds would be changed.
Yeah.
We shall not remember the former things.
I'll tell you one thing.
Right.
If Satan hadn't taken the guise of a serpent in the garden, it definitely would have been a cat.
Yeah, whatever.
So, Richard, why don't you like cats? What's wrong with them?
I don't. The fact that you gotta clean up after them and just, I don't know. They're just. Did I ever tell you? Did I ever share with you the difference between cat and dog theology? And this will probably answer your question. Do you know the difference between cat and dog theology?
No. What?
Okay. This is how Christians, and this was used to explain how Christians approach their worship of God. A dog looks at his master and says, you feed me, you take me for a walk, you clean up your messes, you must be God. A cat looks at you and Eric and says, you feed me, you let me out, you clean up my cat litter, I must be God.
Yeah, but I must say this: all of the cats that we've had, the very first cat I had when I went flatting, she used to wait for me in the letterbox, and she'd know when the taxi was pulling up the drive. All the other cats they follow us around like dogs, and they know when you can virtually set your clock about for them when they want to get fed, and you look at the clock and it's exactly the time that they get fed. Cats are not silly; they actually do know quite a bit.
Intelligent. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
but I'm not I'm not I'm not an animal person per se. Period. So I mean, cats and that. And I'm, some people say, well, I'm a dog person. I don't like cats. I'm not even fussy about dogs, even though we have them. I'm married to a woman who just.
I thought you were going to say I'm married to a dog. No.
I'm married to a woman that loves animals. And so I've had to put up with both dogs and cats. But there are times, even the dog we have right now, just like
I love all animals.
It just annoys me. And I used to say when my kids were small, they said, "Don't you have any pets?" I said, "What do I need pets for? I have kids."
Yes, yeah.
Well, we were raised with animals, so we had horses and chickens and dogs and cats. And
yeah, my grandfather on my mum's side had lots of animals, and he used to raise golden labs for the Blind Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 pups of every litter that he had would go and be trained as guide dogs for the blind. And one day I said to him, "You allow Janine and Stuart to walk the dogs for you when they came up to Christchurch." I said, "But I don't get a chance to walk a dog." And he said, "Well, just you wait." So he went back to Dunedin, and he must have trained a dog, which he did. And when he came up to Christchurch again, he said, "Oh, this dog's for you, Wendy." He said, "Not to keep, just to walk while we're here." I said, "Okay." So he put it on the lead for me, and he said, "Right, I'll see you when you get back." So I took this dog for a walk, and I fell over, and this dog, without a word of a lie, sat down, waited for me to get myself up and pick up the lead, and we carried on back to my parents' place. I said, "How did you train this dog not to run when I fell over?" He said, "Oh, I just trained it." He wouldn't tell me, just trained it. He had a real knack of training these dogs. So that was really cool.
Awesome.
See, and now a cat would have just dragged you through the mud.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But no, we've got a couple of great cats at the moment. One's asleep in front of me, but they're getting pretty old now.
Right, it's
the
your
old
orange
big
one.
orange one.
That's happy
Yeah.
kid.
We saw the tail coming up. Really.
Yeah,
Mm.
he's really cool. The ginger one's really cool. He likes being petted, and if you come through the door, it's meow, meow, meow.
Oh, there it goes.
There's a cat sighting right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uh,
It's funny.
yeah.
You know, a lot of cats are like that. They don't, you know, a lot of cats we've had and the cats my in-laws and stuff have had, they don't like to be petted.
What time is it where you are?
It's 10 to 8 in the morning.
Oh, wow, it's early.
And we change over to daylight saving tonight, so we lose an hour's sleep tonight.
Do we do that
No,
too?
we don't do that
Oh.
till the end of our 1st of November.
The 6th of November, you guys change over,
Yeah.
because
Wow.
we already had a lock.
So remember, they're heading into their spring. We're heading into fall.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
The color,
So,
the leaves have already changed colors here. They're red and golden and really beautiful.
cool. Yeah, I don't mind the changing of the leaves. I quite like it, but the thing that gets me in the winter, it gets cold, and then my knees ache, and then if I get too cold, I can't warm up. So that's why I don't like winter very much.
It's hard for us to think of July and August as winter, and probably this, and for you to think of January, February, or
Although
summer.
it felt like fall this summer.
Well, we didn't.
Well, no, not exactly, because I kept saying to Eric, I want to go to England to experience a cold like you guys do,
Yeah.
a cold Christmas. And also my grandparents came from England, so I have cousins over there that I have never ever met, and I'd love to at least meet them once. I know that I won't be able to go and stay with them, not like my mum and dad can do when they go to England to, visit the family over there, because of their up and down houses, like Coronation Street.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, our ancestors
can't-
are from England as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
My dad's.
My ancestors came here in 1841 from East Anglia.
Right.
Alongside.
Yeah.
We're Irish.
So I'd like to do that. So we'd have to save a lot of money to actually, because we'd have to stay in a hotel, and all that. But and my mum and dad have a very old antique high chair that came off one of the ships that came to New Zealand from England.
Wow.
And it goes down the male side of the family. So I might be the oldest daughter of my dad, but I don't get it. My brother gets it, which is a bit unfortunate because I love antiques and I'd love to have this high chair. And the last person to sit in it was Chantel, and my parents have got this photo of her sitting in this very old antique high chair that they've
nice. Like to see that.
Paid a lot of money for it to be restored. So it's really cool. I should actually, next time I'm talking to my mum, I'll get her to send me a picture of it, and I'll try and get Eric to take a photo of it and post it up so you can see
in the chat. Yeah.
Now, speaking of Eric, I'm assuming his ancestors came on a prison ship.
I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
No. Got Scottish, got Italian in me. So the Italians provided the whaling side, and the Scottish provided my hard-headedness.
Wow. How does a Scotsman from Aberdeen wind up in Venice to get on a ship to go to New Zealand? Therein lies a tale, I'm sure.
Yes, but there's a slight problem with that. My side of the family one side came from Italy, the other side came from Scotland.
Ah, okay. All right. So, oh, I get it. Okay, so the prison ship came from Scotland and boarded in Venice, and they took a bride from the prison ship. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
No. It came from Canada.
No.
The
west or the east coast. Hey, where'd you go?
That we were never a prison colony.
But
Neither were we.
Neither was New
No, I know.
Zealand. It was
Yeah.
was Australia that was
Australia, not New Zealand.
That's
Yeah.
where Annalise is. Oh no, she's from Africa. No, Australia. Annalise is from Australia.
She is?
Yeah.
She is.
Hey?
Yeah.
She is.
Annalise, Australia?
Yep.
Where in Australia? Did you tell us?
I can't remember. She did say, but
Are
I
you
can't
sure?
remember. Yes. She's from Australia.
Oh, good eye.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've even heard it said, you know, that the Australian accent is closer, that's the real English accent. But if you actually go and into England, like I've heard my grandmother when she was alive talk to her brothers in England, and it doesn't sound anything like what they speak in Australia.
Yeah.
In fact,
No.
she had the, you know, like the East End accent, and it was really cool.
Coronation Street.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like, oh, is that my nana talking on the telephone? And of course it was, but it was amazing that her natural accent came back when she talked to her brothers. But when she got off the phone and spoke to my grandfather or spoke to me or whoever she was, it softened up a bit and it came back to what we would hear. I thought that was fascinating.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know why in Canada we lost our accents. I mean, like you, we all started off as English colonists.
It's French now. A lot of
and
French.
With a French colony after the end of the 7 Years' War, and Quebec became part of the British Empire. But,
Yeah.
you know, why we, like the Americans, lost our accents, I have no idea. The only accent in Canada that even could qualify as an accent is the accents of people from Newfoundland.
Oh yeah,
Right.
they're by.
And that's almost an English, like a broad English, Scottish burr accent. And even that's dying. But why the accent, the Englishness of the accent in Australia and New Zealand continues? It's an interesting story. I don't know. I'm not a philologist, but.
Well, I don't know either, because if you put my sister and myself together and we spoke to you, like she spoke to you and then I spoke to you, her accent has wickedly changed. She was born in New Zealand like I was. She now lives in Australia, but you would think by just listening to her that she was born in Australia, and she wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. She has totally taken on the Australian accent. Whereas if I went there, I would probably still sound very Kiwi because I just.
You're right.
People that know you're from New Zealand, yeah.
Well, it's like our daughter who moved to Trinidad. She has a Trinidadian accent.
Our daughter, she's been living in Trinidad with her husband now for better part of 10 years. And now all of a sudden we're starting to hear like a Trinidadian accent in the way she speaks, and she doesn't realize she's doing it because when you're around it all the time, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I get how you acquire an accent when you're around people like that, but I don't understand how you lose an accent. Like here in Canada, I would love to speak where you and Eric speak, and I would love to speak the way my English ancestors spoke with that accent, but we just don't. It's just that middle American, you know, kind of boring, no inflections.
No, it's not boring because my doctor's actually Canadian. He married a New Zealander, and he lives here now, and so he's still got his Canadian accent.
Oh, good for him. But
Sounds a bit
how long has he
different
been
from
there?
yours.
Oh, I don't know.
Don't know. Since the mid-90s at the earliest. Sorry,
Wow,
at the least.
mid-90s.
No, that's certainly long enough to acquire one.
Yeah.
But he hasn't.
But he hasn't. That's
No,
interesting.
No, he hasn't. He still sounds very Canadian.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably what happened when you first stumbled on us and listened to us and say, hey.
They've got an
Hey,
accent.
I know that accent.
I mistook you for Americans.
Oh,
Really?
well, good luck with that.
Huh?
Yes.
Huh?
That's how you tell the difference between a Canadian and an American. And then a Canadian will say, eh? And an American will say, huh?
I say huh most of the time. Huh?
And we call it, when we're talking about soft drink, we call it pop, and they call it soda, because when it originally came out, it was soda pop. And they took the first one. They call it a soda now. We all call it a pop. I don't know why. We just do.
Yeah, I'm going to get a pop.
They
Yeah.
come from Britain.
Yeah, maybe.
Britain.
Maybe.
Because it just gets known here as soft drink. That's it.
Yeah.
End
Oh,
of.
Coke.
Or
Yeah.
Coke or Pepsi or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. So, yeah,
Mm.
it's...
No, we call it pop. They call it soda, and you guys call it a soft. The rest of the world calls it a soft drink.
yeah.
Tomato, tomato.
Tomato.
Potato,
Let's call the whole
potato.
thing off.
Yes, and
Yeah.
like sweet potatoes called kumara over here, and you guys call it sweet potato. So,
Here's
Yeah,
another one
sweet
for you.
potato.
A fruit that's brown on the outside and green on the inside. What do you call those?
Oh,
Oh, kiwis.
Yes. Now,
How did you
in
know
New Zealand, how on earth would you distinguish between kiwi the New Zealander, kiwi the flightless bird, and kiwi the fruit?
I don't know. How would
That's
you?
a good question.
Well, in New Zealand, we always refer to the fruit as kiwi fruit.
Oh, okay.
Always.
And kiwi birds
Kiwi
to
the flightless
bird.
bird. Well, that's just kiwi, but context informs that one. And the rest of the time, it's talking about Kiwis as a culture or
Oh.
a people group.
Which is you guys.
Yeah.
I've always
Yeah, which is that.
but
You just
I
dropped out for a minute.
know it was
Say
a
again?
bird, but then how do you made the distinction between the fruit? How do you make the distinction between you as Kiwis and the bird as a Kiwi?
you don't. We have to use context. Like if we're talking
Okay.
about Kiwis, we're usually talking about us as people,
As
If we-
opposed to the flightless
that would be-
bird.
as opposed to the bird.
'Cause
Well,
it's
that would
not
be a
very
problem
often
here
to talk
in
about
Canada.
Kiwi the bird.
Well, that would be a problem here in Canada, because when you call someone a bird, you're saying he's an idiot. What a bird. You have to qualify here. So
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, a lot of people get confused that New Zealanders are called Kiwis as well. And it's like, huh?
We don't have any problem with it.
We don't have any problem
No,
with it.
I bet
I would
you
hope
It's
not.
a
don't.
real term.
I bet you don't. And
It's like explaining, what were we trying to explain? About New Zealand's name. It is New Zealand.
Right.
That's the
That's the
English
English
name. Then we've got the land of the long white cloud.
Long
Which-
white cloud.
You didn't know, which
No,
Anne
I didn't know that.
No.
And then we've got, how do you spell?
Aotearoa.
Yeah.
And that's the Maori variant of Land of the Long White Cloud. Because that's what they saw when they first came to our shores. They saw a
Sure.
long white cloud. And they knew there must be land there.
Is there a place called Zealand
Yes, in Holland.
in UK? Yeah, in Holland. That's what I was just about to say. Yeah, it's
in Holland.
Why would they call it New Zealand? Was Zealand
Because the
being part of
original-
Holland and the Netherlands?
The original discoverers of New Zealand wasn't Captain Cook.
Who was it?
It was Abel Tasman from Holland.
Is that why it's called Tasmania?
That's one of the reasons.
Oh, okay. There you go.
It should be, if you want to know, it should be relatively easy
Yeah,
to
Wikipedia page will tell you.
look it up about the history and about who first saw the land of New Zealand.
But I thought, yeah, we could look it up, but I thought we'd ask you because you guys are Kiwis.
You're a cute
So
little
we've got
Kiwi.
the brains. You just know how to use them.
Yeah.
Did you hear
Story
what
about Henry Ford?
Henry
said,
Ford
"Why do
didn't? Henry Ford didn't discover New Zealand.
No. Just hear me out. Henry Ford was famous for not having a filing cabinet in his office. He said, "I have one button. Why do I need anything more? With this one button, I can summon somebody to answer any question I might have."
Okay, all right, fine. All right. Ford fact. We have a Ford factory in Oakville. I will call the head office and find out why New Zealand is called New Zealand.
Yeah, it's because there is a reason, but I've forgotten it.
I don't know it either.
It's a long time since we actually didn't talk about who discovered New Zealand. We in our social studies class, it was all about the Maori Wars and
Really? Well, I'm sure you must have talked about Captain Cook.
Oh yeah, Captain Cook. Yeah,
he was the one that circumnavigated New Zealand.
Yeah.
So he was the one that actually mapped out the entire coastline.
Yeah, he came to our shores as well. On the west coast.
Wasn't he a pirate?
Yep.
No.
No.
Pirate. Cap.
No, didn't some of Captain Cook's not ships, crew got murdered by the Maori because they did something wrong, I think.
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah. I
heard that. Although Captain Cook himself, was it Tahiti that he met his demise by the tribes?
Somewhere
he was killed by out in the South Pacific somewhere. It wasn't New Zealand. It wasn't New Zealand. No Kiwi would dare do that.
The Maori tribes might have, because they were pretty feisty back then.
They weren't too keen on the white man.
No. And the problem with the treaty was that apparently there was more than one copy, and it was done the Maori language, but because of the different dialects of it, they forgot about that. And so when the paper went down the country or up the country, it was kind of different. And so the chiefs thought what they were signing was one paper, but it ended up being 2 or 3, and they had different things in them. Yeah, and that's what half the problem is now, because all this is coming to light about the treaty not being written properly for all the tribes to do.
Same here.
How convenient.
With a lot of the treaties here, and with the Native people, the Aboriginal people here, same thing. Yeah.
I don't know why they decided they were going to treat the Maori so bad. That I don't get that, and I don't get why Australia doesn't recognise their Aboriginal people properly. Like New Zealand's a long way ahead of Australia when it comes to their native population. Australia still tends to treat their native population quite badly. And I don't, in this day and age, in 2022, you'd think that they'd get their acts together.
You'd think so, but Australia in 2022 is delightfully politically incorrect, we're out of step with the rest of the world. So, some of the things that they do, they pushed against what the rest of the world is doing, and I'm surprised that nobody's called them out on it, because they call everybody else out on it. But who knows?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, I'm just looking at the time.
Yeah. Guess what?
What?
We have a Living Stones video for tomorrow.
Yeah.
We didn't have one. We were going to do the round table today, but now you have provided us with some content for tomorrow. So thank you.
That's all right. You're welcome. Anytime.
I didn't say very much, but I don't usually when Richard's with me.
Oh, well.
No, it's nice to be able to talk about these, other than the spiritual things that we talk about, getting to know you personally. And that's why and Eric, and that's why I want to show this tomorrow, that just shows more of a personal side for you guys, that the branches can get to know you even more. So.